Dude, you are getting well. Dude.
Dude, hi.
Hello. Welcome,
Thank you.
dudes of all genders, and welcome to my very special guest. It is an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to be with and introduce this human who I so love and admire and am inspired by on a regular basis. This is life and career coach and many other things. He is a spiritual man. He's a man of many talents. He is Brian Patacca. Brian, how are you?
Really good. Really grateful to be here with you today. We've known each other for a long time, and it's gratifying to me to be able to see you and also see both of us like graduate into different people in a weird way. Not that I didn't like who we were before, but we're different than we were then, and to like be, I think it's a privilege to be able to have a history with someone. And I think that's kind of we have that with few people, and then we have it with our family, right? And so I think it's just such a gift to see all that you've created and to be invited to be a part of it. I'm just delighted to be here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, I feel the same way. I'd love to share a little bit about how we met, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
go for
great.
it.
So it's such a great story. Speaking of getting well, before I was well, I was like a hot mess, but also I had a lot of fun acting roles, and one of them was in an off Broadway, the beginning of the show called Joy, but it was originally called The Joy of Gay Sex.
Mhm.
And
The new name, the
Brian,
Joy, was a much better name. Thank you, because
yes,
it really wasn't about the joy of gay sex
no,
at
it
all.
wasn't at all. And so I just brought it up because it was funny, and we forgot
Right.
that. And Brian was one of the we had like a fling in the show,
Yeah.
and because my character was also sleeping with many professors in this piece,
God, I
and
forgot that.
yeah, I played Christian, the bisexual
Right.
character.
Yeah. That's exactly correct.
And I remember your glitter, and you were like so fit and full of life, and we had so much fun in
Dude.
that 3 by 5 foot dressing room. And what was that called? That place?
The Producers Club.
Blocked it out of my
The Producers
memory. Yeah,
Club. Yes, and we had
How
a
could
long.
I forget
Right,
the
on 40,
Producers Club?
like 44th and 8th Avenue or something, or Ninth
I hope
Avenue,
they're
I think.
still there. It
Oh, they
should
are.
be
I
a
see people. Yeah,
historical landmark
yeah,
at this
totally.
point. I mean, some
Yeah,
amazing things started, so including our relationship. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so happy that we both made it to today.
Yeah, for real. And also, we had a long run, so I feel like that breeded a space for us to like be hanging out a lot, which I think you don't
Yeah,
always get when you're doing theater like that. So,
yeah,
yeah, that was a wild start.
yeah. And I got to
Yeah.
run into you throughout the time, and then just kept crossing paths. And there was a time in my life when I was really seeing that more support was needed in our community, especially the creative community, the artistic communities. And as soon as I stepped in and owned that, I had been coaching for years, but I'd never introduced myself as a coach or owned myself as a coach. I thought my acting career would be over. I couldn't be an actor and a musician and a coach, and like no way I could do all of those things.
Right. Right.
And I just got so clear that it was time to step up. And as soon as I did, I love algorithms for, I don't mind that they know what I'm into. I would like to see more of what I like, So they brought Brian back into my life, and I followed you and I saw what you're up to, but I continue to notice growth, and I continue to notice you just were so committed to service and giving so much value to lives. And the one thing I see as an actor that was really missing for me, coming out of NYU and going into, in the acting world, is the support, of the professional side, the wellness side. So, Brian, can you talk us a little bit how you got from Joy and the Producers Club to Brian Breaks Characters podcast and all the amazing stuff you have going on today, and your I just remembered one other thing. You were about to get ordained in a Course of Miracles.
Yeah. So that's true. So I'm a reverend now. I've did a 3-year study. It should have taken 2 years. Took me 3 years.
Okay.
This is not the go
Hey.
online in 5 minutes and marry your cousin ordaining. This is like
Yes.
I program that I was in for 3 years. Should have been 2. But I will say, yeah. So it's non-denominational. A Course in Miracles is the background that I have, but I just have that spiritual language, I think, and background to bring to creative people. And how it all came to be is a really kind of not too different from yours, which is that I was working as an actor. I always say that I have like a bit of a Midwestern work ethic, which is like, you can't just be working one job. You have to have multiple jobs and be making some kind of money. And so while I was working, and I was in a show called The Donkey Show in New York City for a year and a half.
You were in the donkey. Oh,
Yeah.
Wait.
That was my first. That was when
So
I
we
first
crossed paths again there.
Wait,
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I was dating Casey in the Donkey Show.
Oh, and I came, I think,
Like
on the same time that Casey came to the show.
Yes. And as someone was leaving, I saw you and I got inspired to audition to be a fairy.
Oh my God, yes.
And my friend, one of my best friends today, Anna Foss Wilson, was a big part of
your best friend. That's wild. Oh my God.
And Rachel and Rachel Murdy too.
Yes.
But Anna and we're super close.
That's
and we talk about the donkey. That show changed my life. Okay.
Right,
I forgot about that. Thank you.
So when I was in New York City, I went to Northwestern. I came to New York, and my first job out of high school or college was working at an advertising agency where I worked. My clients were Broadway shows. And so I would sit in a room with the people who were producing Kiss Me Kate, with the entire public theater, because we did their entire season, with George Wolfe, with all the, so and here's me, little like 22-year-old, like starstruck by my clients who I'm like working for till 11 o'clock at night. This was not when quiet quitting was a thing, just FYI. So I was like working nonstop, right? So, but of course I loved it, and I was young and full of energy and learning so much about marketing. And then at about 2.5 years into that, I walked into my boss's office and said, I have to quit because I don't want to grow up to be you. We were close, so it was okay to say that to them. We're still friends to this day. He's my first boss, right? And I got acting jobs right away. I got the Donkey Show almost right away. So I had a full-time, I had a 6-show-a-week job that could have just paid the bills, but not Brian Patacca. He had to also have a temp job and also be coaching actors quietly on the side. And what happened was I'd be backstage with the actors I was in the show with 6 days a week, and I would hear them getting so challenged by the business. And I'm like, I knew how awesome they were because I was performing with them every single night. And I was like, what do you mean you can't get an agent? What do you mean you're not getting auditions? So I started to come sit down next to Mama, and I would like say, go do this. And then they'd get an agent, or go do this. And they'd get the audition they weren't able to get. And I was like, oh, I guess I learned something from all that marketing and producing I did at Northwestern. And so I started to figure out like a system for myself. And at the same time, my own career, of course, was growing. And part of me coaching just helped me reaffirm what I needed to be doing as an actor for myself. Right. And it started off as one-on-one, and then I was group coaching. And in my group coaching for a while, it was like, I'm going to create an accountability group for me, and I'm going to help these other people. But very quickly I was like, never mind, this isn't me. I'm just going to coach you guys, because I don't need to, like, it didn't like being both at the same time. That said, I started to, at one point, I feel like I turned the corner of making my living as an actor. And that was like super exciting. And I felt super grateful, because we know how much luck also goes into that, even though hard work does as well. And at the time that I was making my living as an actor, I was like, oh, well, I can go all in on this coaching thing as the thing I'm doing when I'm not on set or I'm not on stage. And was doing that. Always had LA in my mind. This is getting a little bit long. I promise we're getting to the end. Moved to LA.
No, we're with you. We're with you.
And then I moved to LA. I was doing TV in New York, moved to LA, did some TV in New York, in LA. And while I was on set in LA, I remember being pissed off. I was at a major network show, this job I booked. And I was like, I am pissed because I canceled appointments on my clients that I was meant to meet with that day to be on set that day. And because on set, I was like, this is nowhere near the fulfillment that I get when I'm sitting across from someone and helping them break through their limiting beliefs, the boundaries they've created for themselves, myths and stories, and really having them step towards what they really want. And so for a minute, I was like, that can't be right. Nope, I'm an actor. Can't believe that. And like through my own coach and dear friends around me who helped me say, Brian, you like this so much better. What if you say, this is your number one? And very quickly, within the matter of like 2 months, I was like, oh, acting, schmacting, bye. I'm going towards coaching. I love it. And that said, I don't, I don't believe I ever quit acting. What I believe is that acting led me to exactly who I'm meant to be as a coach, because the people that I work with, I need to be able to be compassionate with the idea of putting yourself on tape at home and meeting with an agent or a manager and understanding what it's like to go work on a script. And that brings me to my audience of creative people, which I think applies to the same as the photographers and the writers and the directors and all the people that I work with, not just actors, but having been in the creative mix of the muck of figuring it out for yourself, and then being able to bring that to myself with my coach training, my reverend training, I think is kind of what makes me the coach that I am today, and also makes me so passionate about it, because I know what it's like to pound the pavement. I know what it's like to not get the job. I know what it's like to put your all into something and then see it fall apart. Right. So, and also to feel the success on the other side of that, because I think that the biggest myth that a lot of creatives can grab onto sometimes is that you're not ambitious, or there's something wrong with being ambitious. If you weren't ambitious, you'd be doing it at home in your mom's garage, right? There's some part of you that said, I'm moving to Atlanta, I'm moving to California, I'm moving to Los Angeles, I'm moving to New York, I'm in Chicago, or I'm going to that school so I can get mo better at this. And to me, that is where I get excited, because yes, 100%, because if you just want to do it at home, then you weren't hooked onto your impact. You want to have an impact, which is why your ambition is showing up. You want to be on bigger stages, in bigger galleries, on bigger screens. And that is why you want to be at these epicenters of where creativity is happening, so that you can have a bigger impact as an artist. So I think denying our ambition is denying a part of ourselves, or what we're meant to be here, what we're meant to do as a human being on the planet in this time. And so that's kind of what drives my coaching now, is just that purpose and that passion around, like, the world I want to see is hella better when everyone listening and everyone who is in my community, your community, is exacting and working toward their purpose and existing in their purpose, right? I think that's the world that I want to see. And so this is a totally selfish venture as a coach, so that I can have the world that I want around me.
I feel that was yeah. It's so wonderful that being of service is such great service to ourselves. And I don't want it to get mixed up with, like people pleasing and saviors and always helping other people. But I really hear that you've done the work to recognize your purpose, your potential, to move towards what feels good, to honor your like what your soul is speaking to you, whether or not other people say it should look this way or it should look that way, or you should be here. Um, uh, and what really stood out to me was denying our ambition is denying ourselves.
Yeah.
There's a reason I moved to New York, and you nailed it, right? Like my sister, I love my big sister Polly. I'm home in my mom's house visiting my family, and my mom has been ill, but my sister and I are really getting to come together. And she used to say, like, why do you need to like be famous on Broadway or in major film? I'm just curious, like, could you be happy with like doing community theater here? And that really hit me. I was like, oh, wow. I mean, I guess I could be, but I just know that I've got there's just more to me than just here. Right. So I felt like I had to go where I could have the biggest impact. And there's everyone else, the same idea. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I appreciate that you also, I hear you like finding home somewhere in
Yeah.
that, like finding your center in that.
And I also think, just Ben, to just make it really
Mhm.
clear, like, it would have been denying some part of, because the person who doesn't have the ambition to go there doesn't make them wrong, because
Of
their experience as
course.
a creative is different. So whatever
No, as
you're
a calling
drawn
for,
to, right? So
yeah.
you're drawn to be there is because there is something bigger for your
Mm.
impact there, right? And also, Polly, where are you from originally, Ben? I forgot.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Right, right. Polly probably wouldn't go to New York as much as she did since you lived there, or
Yeah.
wouldn't have visited as much, or wouldn't have had the life that she has had because of it. So
Oh,
we have to be
yeah.
mindful of how each of our actions, like the butterfly that flaps its wings, right? But sure, I want to go a little bit bigger than that. But like, you're moving toward your desire is lining up that which the universe has planned for everyone around you,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I also believe the universe is self-correcting. So like, if you don't take that step, it's okay too. But
Yeah.
there's you stepping toward what you're called to is its most magical and perfect unfolding.
Mm. Thank you for saying that and really acknowledging like that being your ambition can look so many different ways. Our ambition can. And to bring it completely full circle, one of the greatest cities our band has been fortunate enough to tour through Chattanooga, but we actually had a hard time booking a gig here, and we're like a national touring band from New
Yeah.
York coming through and Chattanooga's getting so hot. Like the real estate market's through the roof. It's like, it is an incredible, vibrant city that I would love to be a part of, and really hope to be able to invest in one day, and have a home here also. And it's becoming I realize how much it's given me, and without that I may not have the appreciation of the big city and of nature. Like, I was a stand for people in the big city to get like nature and slow down, and so there's all these gifts right wherever you go. And I want to we have our producer Becky got to listen in today, and she's like all about it. She was in musical theater as well, and she is an incredible force, and a big voice behind Dude You're Getting Well. So thank you for being here, Becky. And also Kenny Jaworski, who's an incredible artist and has heard about A Course in Miracles. So thank you for all of that, Brian. Oh, says hi, Becky. I want to ask you about a couple things. First of all, just fun side before we dive in more. Could you describe what the donkey show is for people who don't know? Because just for anyone who has the wrong idea, there are different
it is
kinds
not
of
the donkey show
shows.
that is famous from Mexico. It is the donkey show that is famous from A Midsummer Night's Dream. So in A Midsummer Night's Dream, if you remember, I'm assuming everyone is an erudite Shakespearean fan right now, right? In Midsummer Night's Dream, the two mechanicals are turned into an ass, and Titania, the Queen of the Fairies, has sex with the ass, or is suggested sex with the ass. Anyway, Donkey Show was A Midsummer Night's Dream told through disco songs set in Studio 54. Yes. And so it was all music that people would like it, like my mom came like 3 times because she was obsessed with all the music, of course. And I played one of the fairies, and it was a small cast. And so you really got to know these people, and there was a lot of like pasties on boobies, and so there was a lot of like
skates
and roller skates and
party
drugs, because remember Puck drugs them to fall in love with each other.
Yeah,
and so like there was
so they
drugs,
had all this fake white powder everywhere.
Yes. And it feels very Studio 54, and people loved it. And the show ran for over 7 years, and I did it for 1.5 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. It was such an incredible energy, and really for me stood for what New York was really taking on, and like
totally
that was, bending gender again and bringing the disco era back, and just having fun and celebrating life and love and lust and each other. And it was really amazing. I actually just got to see a production of Midsummer Night's Dream at the Old Globe in San Diego last week, and it's done I can't remember the name of the director, but it had an Afrocentric theme as well as a queer and non-binary theme. And cool. It was like futuristic and old worldly. So it was like steampunk, and there was a DJ.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
And it was so cool. And someone walked out in the middle like, this is blasphemy. This is so far from what the author intended.
Have you been on this planet, and like, have you seen what people have done with Midsummer Night's Dream? Where have you been? Like, come back, people. Like, what? Why did you show up to the show? Did you not see any of the posters, or like?
Yeah, it was really special. But I was like, yeah, art.
Yes.
Like, she's like, my friend just left, and I was like, wow, like, so great that it's bringing up these things for her. Like, let's go talk about it. I'm excited for the second act. What about you? Yeah. Like, popcorn and like left. So there's all this magic in theater in this place we go to dream. What initially attracted you to the stage or to the life of an artist?
I mean, I think I was never attracted to the life of an artist, because I think the life of an artist that's sold to us is Miserable, Cut Off Your Ear, Moulin Rouge, Rent, and La Boheme, right? It's the same story told 1,000,000 times, and we just see that every single artist in the world is meant to be poor or die of like influenza or something, or consumption. Or in the case of Rent, they were supposed to catch it, like, that they were supposed to get sick, that are supposed to be poor when I could pay rent. Like, there's some part of that. Obviously, there's a much more miraculous, incredible story inside of Rent. I don't want to diminish that. But what I just want to say is this myth of the starving artist did not attract me at all. What attracted me was I'm in an all-white high school with 2,700 people in Ohio. There's one Black person, one Jewish person, and one Asian person in the entire school. There was zero diversity in my school. The theater department was the only place where I could feel like, oh, maybe it's okay to be me, even though I couldn't even be myself outside of that space, like in the hallways, because it would never have been safe enough. And to put a really fine point on this, 3 people in this high school after I left killed themselves. And they say that it is all attributed to homophobia inside of the school. It has subsequently changed dramatically, but I would just say that for me, it was like a refuge. And also, I was like the eternal good student. And so I think this was a place where like it was playful. And so it wasn't about getting it right as much. And it was like, I know how to make people laugh. And ever since I was little, I loved to make people laugh or tell a story or get on stage and sing a song or whatever. And so I think that really drew me to, oh, you can make a profession out of having this much fun. And then I think we all like get into real acting study and we're like, oh, there's more to it than that. We're not all just clowns, which is what I think we sometimes think we are when we don't figure that out. And I think that a lot of people will go into their college programs or whatever program they go to. Oh, this is acting. Do I still love it? They have to ask the question again. And for me, I did. And it was a different kind of challenge. I can imagine someone who's an athlete, like who's like, I want to run this kind of race, or I want to learn this. And like, oh, this is a challenge to understand what is specificity. What does it mean to bring sexuality into a scene? What does it mean to bring my body fully into the scenes? Like those challenges to me were more interesting than math or science, or like it was so much more, pulled me so much more, because I knew that the payoff was someone watching thinking differently about themselves or about the world or something like that. Whereas like adding up numbers, I could never connect the dots. And that is to say that I believe that there are accountants who make their work their ministry, right? But to me, it was very like, I think I'll be honest. I think being creative person is a little bit the cheap seats, because you know the work that you do is meant to make an impact. And so I'm okay with being in the cheap seats where I say, I know that the work I do is meant to make an impact because it is art. That's what it's meant to be, right? And so I was attracted to those cheap seats because I was like, I can get a high and feel aligned. Time, space in the world disappears when I am that present and that in the story. Yeah, that pulled me to it. But also, I was Mr. Worried about security, because I'm sure there's other people who are listening who think this way. Like, I got a job before I went to New York City. I had a job with this advertising. I was like, I can't go to New York without a job. I got to get a job first. So I played it a little bit safe when I first got to New York by getting a job and then tiptoeing my foot out into being an actor at that point, right? And I think that that is one place where there's another lie that I think a lot of creative people can pick up, which is if I give too much energy to something that like sustains me or makes me secure, it means I'm cheating on my passion, or it means I'm not giving enough energy to my passion. And I actually believe like you got to take care of your home, your roof over your head, your food, all that stuff before you can really be daring in your art at times. And we mythologize and romanticize the idea of the starving artist is the only way to make great art. And I actually don't think that now. I think less and less people are believing that, but I really want to just zero in on, it does not mean that you're not good to your art by taking care of yourself. And I think sometimes that dance can be difficult for people to acknowledge, especially also like, let's say you've got 7 days in a row, you've worked a long shift and you haven't had any chance to like get in your acting class or paint a picture or look through a camera or, design anything. Then of course you're feeling that drain, but I don't think that drain is related to you doing the work. The drain is related to you never making time for the art. Because that art is where the universe has said, you are here to do this. So since your universe says you're here to do this, then the less time you are, the more time you're distant from doing your art, the more time that passes, the more out of sorts you will feel, because you're not in alignment with what the universe put you on the planet to do. It'd be like water saying, I want to be a duck. Like, it's not going to go well for water. It's going to have a bad day. So with you saying, I'm meant to be a server, I'm meant to be my temp job, I'm meant to have this work, like, and I believe that, the moment you start to believe that, that's when things I think get topsy-turvy. Uh-oh. Did you freeze?
Thank you for being patient with my mom's
for
connection
sure.
today.
Yeah.
I just connected to my backup, so we should be good.
Great.
Becky, let's edit this part out. Okay.
Great.
So, you're talking about like, finding your purpose, owning that, like not hiding from it, not being that day job, believing what you be in, taking acting is such a great study of human psychology and of understanding human behavior. What was the and I love that you talked about the lie that we tell ourselves as actors. That I believe I thought I had to suffer to be a great artist,
Mhm.
and um, that was a challenge for me when I quit drinking and doing drugs. I was like, I suddenly couldn't play music. I was like, I don't know how to fuel my art. Like I don't have the pain I had, and I thought I was needed that in order to create great art. And thank God I held on to this world a little longer, and I ended up getting so much better, and my art got so much better because it wasn't from a place of suffering. It was from a place of empowered and learning from that pain and owning it, and then making it my life's purpose to share that with people. But you said something too, like I realized I had owned that I had to suffer also financially, that I couldn't make a lot of money. And if I did, that meant I probably wasn't a really good human. I wasn't connected
Yeah.
to a purpose. I wasn't connected to a really good cause. I was like all about the external. And I realized it took me a long time to figure out that was learned behavior and passed down through generations. And it was thanks to the Actors Fund. I want to give a shout out to them and their classes, the free financial support I got there from that nonprofit in the middle of Times Square that said, you don't have to live this way any longer.
Yeah.
Um, what do you resonate to around that? And how did you make the shift to like understanding that maybe you had that mindset about artists, you didn't want it, and how did you turn that around and to become to for the success that you have today?
I don't know that I ever had a conscious turning it around. I think I somehow knew that and I think this comes from like being raised by my mother. My mom, I remember my mom said to me once, like, don't only famous kids get to be actors? She was like, think of like Gwyneth Paltrow and things like that, right? So like, and like, yes, there are a lot of nepo babies. You are right, mom. But at the time, what I was thinking that at the time, I was like, she also was very supportive of me doing this. But I think what I took from that was make sure your own, tend your own acre, I think is what people can say sometimes, which I think sounds xenophobic a little bit. So that's not actually what I want to say. But like, what I'm trying to say is like, make sure you're, do you hear me?
Yeah, we're with
Okay,
you.
good, good, great. I think it's important that we like take care of ourselves because you're not going to be, you're not going to do well in acting class if you're hating your teacher for every dollar you spent on the class, or if you are stressing out about like, am I going to be able to pay my bills, or I've got that student loan that's going on right now, whatever. Like I remember being really stressed out about those things and saying, well, I'm going to get a job first in New York because New York is expensive. I need to get my feet on the ground and then I'll see how I feel like tiptoeing out. And I think a lot of actors actually will jump into something like, I'm going to New York City and I'm being an actor. Great. I'm going to New York City and let me decide how I'm going to make my money first. Like, let me figure that piece out. And it can be the secondary piece. And I actually think if you're willing to say, you are not going to miss out on opportunities in the first month and a half, 3 months, 6 months that you're there so you can land on your feet, it is a much better position to be in. Because then you're like, I know the lay of the land. I know where I want to live now after I subletted that apartment for 6 months, or I figured out like, oh, I want to live in this neighborhood, or I don't have to have a car, or whatever it is that you learn from being there. And I think that there was some part of me that is like a form of self-care, I think in a weird way. That's like, I need to feel my feet on the ground before I'm ready to take that risk. And I think I've always leaned into provide for what's in front of me. That isn't to say like I lived in the tiniest apartment in the world when I lived in New York City on 29th Street and 10th Avenue before it was the High Line. It's the only building still standing next to the High Line. So you can all go look at it if you're in New York and you're listening. And I lived in that apartment for 7 years with my best friend. That's like, I think it was maybe 650 square foot apartment, maybe 700. And there was times when I was scrimping along and there's times that I wasn't. But what was true for me always was, where does the money go that is important? It was important to be in acting class. That money I had to be in acting class. I knew that I had to be acting once a week. I knew that my thoughts from the 6 days I wasn't in acting class needed to be about what I was doing in acting class on Thursday night. That is where my brain was in that artistry. So that way, when I went to the audition on Tuesday for that commercial or that TV thing, sure, that was just one of the many things I was doing as an actor. It wasn't the thing that I was doing as an actor. And I think some ability to whatever your art is, and I think, you feel good when you're doing your art, is to make what is the nurturance you need and what is the actual dollars and cents that you need to be able to nurture that when you're not on set, on stage, in the gallery, doing the work where you're getting paid for it is so vital. I think we usually think of it the other way around. I'm gonna audition, and then I'll be, when I get the job, I'll have money, or when I get, or when I paint the painting and they like it and they hang it in the gallery, when I sell these photos, I'll make like that. And the opposite is true. You know how much better you are at making art. I think sometimes we're sold this lie that like you have to be needy and, again, poor or not, or be without in order to make it, or sick, or to be drunk, or drunk on bad thoughts to be able, or right, to be able to have this experience, to be able to be in our lives and to be an artist. And so I think it's really important that we rewrite that and say, I need to make a life where it's possible for me to do my art, period. Great. If I get art that makes me money, great. And so I think that stuck with me. I realized that that's not how a lot of people walk into this. And so I think if anyone's listening and they're thinking about this, oh yeah, I don't know how to, I would just think back, like, where's the place, makes the first action to take here to make this like a little bit actionable is, where do I have a space to be in the play box, where I just get in the sandbox, where I just get to play with my art, like once a week, once every 2 weeks, creating that space for yourself. And so much comes from that. And it doesn't come from it just because you're going every week. It comes because, not because you're there for that 2 hours you have class or 4 hours you have class, whatever. It also becomes all the rest of the hours of the week when you know it's coming and you're thinking about it. You know this because you think about your vacation. Everybody's like, I'm going on vacation next. Like, you get excited about it. It's the same thing, but on a more microcosm kind of scale. And you need to have that actor, that artist brain that is lodging away those creative thoughts that you get to put in an expression once a week, or when you sit in front of your canvas and you're painting, or whatever it is, that you make that space. And so I know this is, you asked me like about providing for yourself. I think that the first thing you do is, provide your food, and provide this food, your creative food, space for the creative food.
Yes, here's the creative food. Snapping for that. Um, so I'm hearing some allowance, some permission, some making time for. And in today's day and age where we're trying to survive and people are doing all kinds of multiple jobs, and that's actually becoming more common, how do you stay grounded? How do you keep it all together? Um, what advice might you have for those of us who are juggling a lot for the sake of art, or how to integrate this into your
Yeah.
life in a healthy way? Like, how have you been able to do that?
Well, I'll just say I'm super lucky because I have a team that I am accountable to, right? They're like, Brian, where's this? We want to send this email. Like, I have people that want me to give them things because they're due on this day. We've decided deadlines. Well, guess what? You don't have to have a team to have accountability in your life, right? So I think it's really important that you build some kind of, for most people, anytime I say, oh, do you want an accountability group? They're like, eyes light up and they can't wait to have one. An accountability group isn't a savior. Accountability group is something you commit to. So there's a little bit of a false reliance, I think, on just like, oh, accountability group. I'm going to show up. I'm going to say I didn't do it. I'm going to say I did do it, or I need 2 more weeks to do it. I'm going to be very accountable. And you should feel that tinge of not shame, but like, bummer. I wanted to get that done by this week. Shoot, what am I doing here? Okay, next week done. I need this support. I need to ask for help in a different way. Or I love this. I need to break this down. I thought I could do this in a week. I need to push the boat out and just take the first step and say that I'll get this done by next week. So relating to so I want to say, like, ask for help, right? And what that looks like is either an accountability group, a coach, right? Somebody else to be in the conversation. So it's not just you and your bad thoughts. Not to say that everyone has bad thoughts, but I think that our thinking has very little value and action has so much more. Fail and you will learn more than if you think about it forever. The walk around the block is better than the run you never took. Right. So I just really believe into action, action, action. I had someone email me today and I'm helping her with representation. I've been helping her get representation for way too long. And it is not because my system doesn't work. It works every single day. It is because, like, the literal quote, I think, was something like, I have no idea if this is going to work for me, and I'm afraid that it's not going to work, and I have no way to know that it will. And I was like, yes. And every single actor who's had success with this has said the exact same thing at one point. And so what I won't do is I won't say yes to your terminal uniqueness. I will not say yes to you believing that you are so different from everybody else on the entire planet that what has worked for somebody else won't work for you. You can be a unique person with all your beautiful gifts that you bring to the stage, to the screen, to the canvas, to the photo, to the music. Don't use it to be the reason why your path has to not look like you can't do it the way somebody else has. So, I have a friend whose family owns a bunch of grocery stores, and his grandfather said to him, he said, just copy people, just steal from other people, and it will work. And like that is like what has like helped them run their business. And like, it's not like stealing something whole cloth from someone. Like, look, I have the same logo. That's what I'm saying. But like to see that as what has worked for other people is a great place to get you started many times. And so I guess to come back to this for the person who's got they've got 2 jobs and they've got the freelance job and they've got their stuff that's moving around is who are the angels, the accountability partners, the saints, the best friends in your life who will not just coddle you and say, oh, it's okay, you didn't get done over and over and over again. Who will say, listen, you've been trying to send this email for 3 weeks. We're going to sit here for 20 minutes and I'm going to click send. And if you say to me, I don't have those friends, you're lying to yourself. You've never asked. Because people like to feel helpful. We are afraid to ask. It is vulnerable to ask. If they say no, great. You can quit worrying about that friend being the friend who might be able to help. Ask a different one, right? Because right now, the friends who you think will never help are running the show, or the coach you never hire, or whatever it is, right? So depending on what your resources look like. So that my first piece is try not to don't do the opposite of go it alone. Like don't go it alone. It's like what I would say.
Yeah, that's great advice. That took me a long time to get and to practice, and still it's a reflex for me sometimes that I've got to interrupt. It's just a pattern.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And
We all have it.
And I love that you just said ask, right? That you asking, even if someone's a no, could be so honored that they were thought of or trusted to ask. Like, wow, you want to, you'd like me to support you. That's an honor. That's a gift you give someone, respecting them.
I also think just because you're bad at saying no doesn't mean you shouldn't give the dignity of someone giving an answer to you.
Nice.
Most of us are bad at saying no, so we're afraid to ask because we're afraid they're going to be talked into saying yes. Like that's your own bag. Can you not bring your baggage to my front door?
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Even though they don't want to. Who am I to interrupt?
So give them the dignity of their answer. And you can say, listen, I have a big ask to make. I need some accountability. Would you be down to be partners? We can meet twice a week or once a week or text each other every day. Would you be down to do this? I would want to make a real commitment. We can talk about what that looks like. Do you want to talk about it? And if no, please say no, because I don't want to waste your time because this is a true commitment. I don't want this to be something you don't want to do. Great. Moving on. Right. So you have to come in, I think, with a bit of energy around something like this, because you do have to say, I'm looking to make something. I'm looking to create a special space for the 2 or 3 of us. I think it should never be 2 people, just so you know. You should usually have 3. I'll just put that out there because then somebody can be a dud or go on vacation or have a fight with their boyfriend and not be available or whatever it is. Just I think 3 just lets you have a little bit more of a cushion for stuff to come up. We don't want any of them to be duds, but you can have a dud week is why I say that.
That's great. And you also can just have more objective perspective.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really valuable. What's been one of the greatest challenges you faced in being in doing the kind of work you do? Like is there anything that Brian is still working on or struggles with today? And what do you do with that?
Yeah, sure. Every single week. Last week was a really hard week for me. And I struggle. I mean, I would just say, like, for me, this is around a lot about leadership and like leading my very supportive and incredible team. And I think that I've got 4 employees, 2 are part-time, 2 are full-time. And being able to, it's tiny. This is like 5 people. We're not talking about this huge team, right? So we talk all the time, every day. Like after I get off this call, I'll be on a call with somebody else. Like, I'll be talking to them, right? So I see them all the time. So that can create a sense of knowing exactly what's going on inside for them when they're working, when in fact I need to slow down at times and say, hey, I need to let you know you're doing such a beautiful job. Like I need to slow down and make sure that they can see beyond the thing we're working on in front of us. And I need to do that for myself. I was just saying to my therapist yesterday that I sometimes need a boss Brian and then Brian the employee, because the Brian the boss will make Brian the employee work too hard. And I need to be like a better boss to myself, because like I'll be like, never clock out, work all the time. And I think a lot of creative people are probably resonating with this because we love what we do. So it's very hard to say I'm turning it off. But we also know that there's something to be said for like vegging out and watching TV without any guilt for an hour. and like
Yeah.
being okay with like being delighted by what you're watching on the screen, or eating a meal with your partner, or going for a walk with your dog and not having your phone and being guilty for going for the walk, right? And so for me right now, my obstacle I'm trying to overcome, I would say, is I don't believe in the myth of balance. I think balance changes day to day. But I would say I would if I did believe in the myth of balance, it would look a little bit more like knowing when to clock in and clock out, and bigger than that, because I usually am planning further ahead, making sure that what I put on my plate is not going to then be impossible to step away from. Because a lot of time I've got too many commitments behind it. We're like, well, now you have to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning because you can't back out on that. You've promised it to somebody else. You're committed with a partner. Like you've got something else that's going on inside the business where you can't just say, I'm not going to do this. So I would love to have better foresight around my capacity. To have a little bit of a, I don't want to say easier life, but have a life where I am working and playing, right? I think since the
Yeah.
pandemic, I have had to I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this, is since the pandemic, I've had to redefine what fun is and learn what play is again, because it's different for me. And like we've all aged a little bit. And so what that means to you, and you know how you've grown up a little bit, or relationships have changed and stuff. And so that has been a big spot for me to like, oh, I like this now and I want to do this. And some things that used to be fun aren't fun for me anymore. And so I'd like to find space for me to enjoy that, to enjoy the new discovery of what is fun to me these days.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for being so honest and vulnerable with us and letting us in. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm hearing, a lot like healthy boundaries comes to mind. Um, Creating the space for it. There's so many conversations I mean, it's not unique to artists. I've been leading a lot of wellness workshops on burnout and self-care for entrepreneurs and companies now internationally. And the thing that keeps coming up is like, how do I make time for my self-care when I've got this due and my family? And to which I say, well, it's your life. You get to choose your time, and how are you scheduling your time? And that's a great thing, because as you expand, you have a team, suddenly, you've got responsibility to your team. Ideally, things are taking off your plate, but there's also more on your plate.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to those of us, or to yourself from your higher self, around how we could practice healthier boundaries in our day-to-day life and implement more fun, or how do we make time for fun? Like what advice might you give us or yourself from where you stand?
This is going to sound so geeky or like dorky,
Please.
or like whatever, like
Oh,
make
God
plans,
forbid you're
like
dorky here.
make plans. Like this is so like
Yeah.
not cool. It's a little cringy. Like make plans. Like
Uh-huh.
I am a person who will say, well, should I go to this or should I not go to this? And should I buy a ticket even though it's $12? Like make the plans. So for me, I'm an extrovert. This may not appeal to everybody, but for me, I'm an extrovert. So it's like make the plans to see the friend. Say yes to meeting them up at the beer garden on Thursday afternoon. Say yes to like when a friend says, "Would you want to see my comedy show?" Yes, I'll come see your comedy show. So I try to be a lot of a yes, because for me, this is not for everybody. It is nurturing to be around other people, and for me to, I get energized around other people. So for me, getting out of my house and doing that is more helpful. If you're an introvert, if you lean towards more introverted, then you may be more nurtured by being quiet or being yourself. I think we all are on the spectrum from day to day, but I would just say for me in general, by me, it is making plans. So again, say yes to invitations might be another way to say that, so that the people who are introverted, the friends, like, let's go to a reading, and it's a quiet reading of a book. Maybe that's a little more introverted feeling for you. So I just really want to say yes to when something comes into your inbox and a friend's asking you to do something, if you can make it work, start saying yes, and then gauge how that goes for you. Like, oh, I will never be going to a 7:30 p.m. comedy show again because it was too late and it was too far across town and I had to do too much schlepping after work. Blah, blah, blah. Great. You learned it. Great. I will always say yes to the 8 a.m. yoga class. It felt so good. Like you'll start to learn what you like. And I think that a lot of what happens with self-care is it gets a bubble bath manicures wrap. Like that's all you need to be doing is getting bubble baths and manicures and massages. And like, no, actually there's a lot other things that can make a difference for me when I want to feel nurtured. And it's like none of those things. In fact, I hate a bubble bath. So like what are the things that actually appeal to you? And so like, I'll say for me, like I could very easily watch like, 2 more episodes of that show because I'm loving it sitting there with my partner or whatever. And I will say, oh, it's 9:30, it's 10 o'clock. I want to get up at 6:45 tomorrow. I want to go to bed. Let's go. And like, that is a form of self-care because, and it's not that, I don't think that I don't think it always looks like an indulgence when you're going against your self-care. It might also be like, ooh, let's be naughty and stay up late tonight. And like, but it's the consciousness that's brought to it that I think makes the difference. And so I like to delight myself when it comes to self-care. So how do I surprise and delight myself? So delighting myself by saying, oh my God, I went to bed early last night. How weird. Or I made plans to go to that thing with those friends and I actually went and like took a shower beforehand to look cute and everything. And like, I did it and I made it happen. Right. So like that, like to just like be delighted in yourself. When people say like, love yourself, I think that a version of that is being delighted in the actions you say you're going to take and then taking them. And so I think that a form of self-care is finding places to delight in the way you take care of yourself or in the way you create your life. And I think many of us will run ramshot over that because it's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And you haven't said, oh, I'm so glad I went out on Thursday night, like with my friends. It was so nice to see them. And da-da. Like, I am the friend who sends a text that's like, it's so great to see you guys. I love you so much. I'm so glad we do this. Like, I am like, and that might be more for me than for them now that I'm saying that, because that's honestly like how I feel. And I'm like sealing it in a way. So I just think it's important to find self-care that you delight in, because if it's emergency self-care, it's not self-care. That is not self-care. Is I define self-care as the daily actions and habits you take to stave off hunger, exhaustion, depression, and anxiety. So these are daily habits and behaviors that you have, right? That's what I define self-care as. If you have hit the ground, if it is, you're no longer in self-care, you're in like recuperative, like need to take care of myself again, right? They get myself filled back up again. Self-care should be something that is more daily. So like, what are the daily things that you find for yourself or you give yourself?
I love that. I 100% support that statement. I'm glad you said it. I don't think we can hear it enough today. Side note and on topic, I had an incredible flight to Chattanooga with a young Marine, a woman, 25 years old, by the name of Teresa, and I talked about it on an Instagram reel. There's some stuff I won't mention that's in the reel but as it would just be a whole nother podcast. But what I will say is, she said, we're taught as soldiers, like, mission first, push the emotions down, mission first, and there's no wonder so many people are committing suicide today, and so many veterans are struggling, and 9/11's coming up. So I've been thinking about those of us who are in service and those of us who suffer for service, and she said, they're finally actually starting to bring like some wellness professionals or some type of mental health counselor or someone actually safe into the military now, realizing, hey, maybe our mental wellness is as much a part of our well-being as our physical wellness. So it's great if you're going, if we're going to the gym and giving it our all, but are you also, is there self-care? Is there time to like slow down? Are you, do you have a team around you? I love that you talk about team. I have enough accountability. If I don't show up for my therapist, she'll be like, where are you? My coach and friends, like, hello, my family. So I've really trained people to hold me accountable and I realize those are all just acts of self-care too. And that I have a coach, I have a therapist, I have a men's group, I run a men's group, I create the Lions Den. I have this podcast called Dude, You're Getting Well. So I have a commitment to talk about getting well, and not in the problem, but in the solution. And it keeps me like, it makes me smile because it's a little cheesy and it's fun. And so I love that you also said, how can I delight myself? How can we have more fun? We're getting good at the heavy stuff now, but as Martin Luther King's voice comes up, we cannot drive out darkness with darkness. Only light can do that.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be light, and it's okay to ask for light even inside of the darkness. And I've really enjoyed feeling both of those and integrating those into my life. And I appreciate the light that you are in this world. You're a beautiful, bright light. And I'm sure you don't always feel that way, but I want to acknowledge the light in you, and I see it. And thank you.
Man. Namaste. I feel like we need to say namaste. Beautifully. Yeah. Yes.
God just
I mean it in the most profound and truthful way. Yes. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
It's such a delight to talk to you. I know you've got team meetings and things coming up. I want to plug a couple of things before you go. First of all, I definitely want to talk about Brian Breaks Character. So you have an awesome podcast. Would you like to say something about that?
Sure. I will just say that if the conversation we had today is very much in line with the kind of conversations I have on my podcast, Brian Breaks Character. And this is, I bring in all different kinds of artists from all over the world, and creative people and actors and producers and directors and lawyers who work with creative people to have the conversation around letting go of the idea of the struggling artist myth and the belief that the most interesting people are the people who take the path least taken. And so those are the people I want to talk to. And so this conversation really champions creative people. So I would love to see you. Or I guess I don't get to see you. I'd love for you to tune in, everybody. Brian Breaks Character. It's on Apple and all the other places you'd listen to a podcast. And I'm really proud of it. It was something that was like a labor of love of like, am I going to do this? You know, it was that itchy, vulnerable feeling. And then now that I've jumped all the way in, I'm all in. You understand.
Oh my God, so much so. Yeah. And I asked for help before I started this, and I actually started a different podcast with a friend before this because I wasn't ready to do it alone, and I didn't have to, and that actually was exactly the training I needed to be able to have the confidence that I can do one also. And I now have both. And
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
love being part of podcasts. So I'm really grateful for yours. It's been, again, a beacon of light. And so please check out Brian Breaks Character. And before we go, Brian, I've got a couple questions that I ask all of my guests,
Great.
like a quick lightning round. But
All right.
if your life was a Hollywood film, uh, what would be the title?
Oh, I thought you were going to make me pick one that already existed. Okay, so what would be the title? Follow the Yellow Brick Road.
Love it. And who would you cast as your parents in this film?
Oh,
You could choose any actors out
oh,
there.
I could choose act. Oh, I want
You
Emma
can choose
Thompson.
anyone, actually. You can choose
Okay,
anyone.
actually,
We've
a
even
human being.
people have
I
used
mean,
anime characters. I mean, really anyone.
Mr. and Mrs. Michelle and Barack Obama. I would like to play my parents.
Amazing. Follow the Yellow
Yes.
Brick Road, starring Michelle and Barack Obama. Excellent.
Yeah.
And if your partner was to title this movie, what might he call the movie of your life?
The Crazy Tornado.
Awesome.
That's what he would call it. The Crazy Tornado. That's what he would call it, for sure.
Great. And if you were to give one gift to the world today, what gift would you love to give? If you
I mean, I
could
thought
give
like,
the world any gift today, what gift would you give us?
I think of Andrew Yang and I want to be like, can I give everyone $1 million? Like, I wish everyone had all of the resources that they have to not have to worry about head on their roof over their head, shoes on their feet. Like that would be to work less, to be able to have time to be with their family. Like I know that comes down to money, which I hate that that's the answer, but it's like the abundance might be a better word to say that. Like give everybody $1 million. That's the short answer.
Great. I love that.
Which for some people might not be enough.
Great. You already started answering the second to last question is if everyone had $1 million, what do you see us all doing? If we all had the resources.
Being with our family, making art without stress, loving a little more easily, working the right amount of hours in a day, not stressing over buying the good organic blueberries, like just
which I did yesterday.
Yeah, right. The calculations that go to be free of the calculations in our brains of can I have or can I say yes to this? That freedom, I think there could be something there.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. We'll accept those gifts. Thank you.
Great.
Well, for all of you who have joined us, past, present, or future, thank you so much for being a part of the Dude You're Getting Well community. If this resonated, please follow Brian. If Brian says that, please check out his podcast, Brian Breaks Character. And if you want to support this podcast, you can do so by subscribing, sharing this with someone who could use it. Let's use these algorithms to our advantage and spread the medicine. spread the love. There's no lack of love. The more we can share these things, the bigger they can get. And then we can all take over the world with some good juju that it needs.
Yes.
Brian, I can't wait to continue to watch all the beautiful things you do. I will be here in your corner, and I love
Thank
you. And every single person who's a part of this, I couldn't do it without you. You are as much a part of this as Brian and I are. And thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the valuable time out of your day to have a conversation about getting better and making the world a better place. Oh, Brian, can you give us a dude you're getting well to take us out?
Oh yeah, dude, you're getting well.
Yes, you heard it here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Brian. I'm so
Thank
grateful for you.